That's slight tweak.
So sorry about that. We're back in debate. So after much discussion, the Mayor, Deputy are happy with A and B. It will make it clearer if you support the legislation to vote against the A and B, but obviously you can still vote for C if you want to put in a submission, but you probably won't want to. Okay. Right, so we'll go back. I hope that's okay. We'll go back into debate. Yeah.
We already had a mover and seconder.
We've all got a mover and a seconder. So we're going, sorry, slide down to the, yeah. So Councillor Darby is next, and then I think what looks like Councillor Williamson will be after.
Just a question. We're opposing the bill. That's the recommendation at the moment. I guess in terms of what's in the bill, there's probably 5% of it or less is worth supporting. You know, public notices and that sort of thing.
Yeah. So B covers that bit. So we'll still put in there we support not having to do newspaper articles and extending CEO. You know, we can headline we oppose the bill, and then we'll put. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, look, just speaking to this, and I want to acknowledge Councillor Dalton's contribution earlier because she nailed it, and the Mayor's contribution as well. Like how this comes this far without actually having an ear to the international city of Auckland that we are, and is really an absolute insult. You know, if I was to name this bill, I would call it the local government, especially Auckland and its people, neutering bill, because it neuters this council and it neuters participation of our communities. I actually have a different view to my colleague Councillor Baker on the full well-beings, but it's only slight because we're not that far apart. And I actually think that the full well-beings are actually not rigid. They're actually dynamic. They live, they're alive, and they guide me in my decision-making as a governor. They always have, and I think, you know, the reintroduction of the fourth was a bonus. But I think there's a lot in this draft, the bill at the moment, which is really just absolutely kicking mud in the face of not just this council, but the people of Auckland and the people of Aotearoa, New Zealand. I think representation, you know, is in a dire state in terms of, you know, the connections that councils have with their communities. And I actually think that this just kicks even more mud in the face of those that are the representatives, you know, doing their job in the best possible way. So I think we do need to be strong, and I do invite the Mayor, and he has been today, to be pretty blunt and direct that, you know, this grabbing Auckland by the scruff of the neck and thinking, you know, you need to sort of toe the line or just get yourself together, we're the masters. Mayor, I think Wellington needs to know that we're not playing that game anymore. We're not going to be a participant. You know, if you want to be collaborative on many important things for Auckland, you need to collaborate on everything. None of this Johnny-come-lately bills that are so badly informed. Anyway, that's my bit.
Well done.
Thanks, Councillor Darby. Councillor Williamson.
Yeah, I want to, given I haven't spoken all day, I want to just cover this quite carefully. There are 14 proposals in the paper, each with a view about how we should respond, or at least recommendation or a comment. If anybody's good at mathematics, you'll know that 14 factorial comes to 870 billion combinations that you could tick off the 14 as yes or no's. And there's only 20 of us. And so I don't know how it can be a proper democracy in terms of us getting our views by having one lump sum for or against. And I would have thought that you're not going to be able to do it now because of time frame, I get it. But on something like this into the future, there is electronic stuff in Microsoft Outlook where you can send out polling tables which has each of the 14 recommendations, and we would be able to tick either yay, nay, or agnostic. And it would be a lot better by coming to this meeting today, because I understand that I may be very much in the minority with my view. But what I don't really like is somehow being railroaded into one big amorphous mass that we have to just say, well, I support it or I don't. Because then you're opening yourself up to, well, you supported number 7, and number 7 is one you've railed against, and say, oh, well, I don't support 7, but you voted for it. So I would hope that we can learn a lesson out of this, that we in future are not going to just bring a big lump back to the council or to this particular committee and say yay or nay, because 14 very disparate items with very different views held. And I'll just say to you that my view on the 4 well-beings is so problematic because they are whatever you want them to be. And some councils have expanded them to say if it's a cultural or environmental well-being, literally driving huge sums of money and expenditure because we have to comply with this. And there'll be other councils that are saying, no, we actually think well-being is keeping the books right and not running into huge debt and not having debt servicing that's more than most of our spending. And so to have a democracy for 20 people around this table would be way better served if we all got to individually, and those who don't submit, bad luck, you didn't send something back in, and also have a button at the beginning, just a yay or nay general if you don't want to get into the weeds of it. But I've been in politics a long time, and I've never would ever be comfortable with sitting in supporting something without being able to express views on each of the individual componentry. If we did that with the 20 people at this meeting, 21 with the mayor included, or 23 with IMSB included as well, we'd be here for 3 weeks. So I just want to put it on record. I'm going to definitely, I mean, I don't oppose what the mayor's putting together there as an opening statement, but I'm not going to vote for any of what I think is an official's view. I think it's quite a distorted view. Of course, you'd know that. It may be that 18 of you are quite comfortable with it, but I don't think it's a system that we should ever have where individuals are not canvassed in some way for how we feel on each of those 14 recommendations. Thank you.
Kia ora, Councillor. Thank you. Councillor Filipaina.
Kia ora here, mana. And let's all remember why we're here. We're here because the government ended up giving the time frame to get a submission in. That's why we're here. So if there's going to be any pressure applied, it gets applied by the government. I am not going to respond to any of the kōrero that I've heard around the 4 well-beings. I've always given my whakaaro on the 4 well-beings. But I want to acknowledge you, Deputy Chair, in regards to your whakaaro. And even Mr Mayor, in regards to how they treat Tāmaki Makaurau, you're right. And Councillor Darby actually said it. My whakaaro is to you, Robert, to you, to Denise. Thank you for those also helped you with this submission because of the time frame. So to you both, ngā mihi kia kōrua. And the best thing is, as Andy, I know Andy said that he's an old police officer. I'm a young police officer. So I just want to say that the evidence that you've based this submission on, and I'm glad it's our staff doing it, because if you had the whole committee trying to put something together, we wouldn't have anything by the end of the year. So I'm glad you've taken on the task to you both, and you've put in front of us something I believe and I'm fully supportive of. So again, to you and those who helped you with that, thank you so much. Kia ora. Oh, sorry. Just wanted to say, just to you, Deputy Mayor, when I saw that up there, just to mihi to you, yeah, I totally agree with what you said, and seeing it up there, fully support. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Turner.
Thank you. I'll be quick. I'm going to abstain on this because I have heard everybody, but I really appreciate what Councillor Baker said. To the staff, I know you're listening in for guidance. I remember in one of our debates about youth voting or something, we came back with a submission, and Councillor Watson pointed out that we'd said that the council was neither for nor against when we'd actually voted against slightly. All I'm asking is, I don't want you to be political. I know you can't, but I really do, on behalf of the community, just bring to the table that they see outcomes as the well-beings. So if we can do something about that. So I'm going to be abstaining to try to send that message. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Member Wilcox.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this, in a way, I understand totally what Councillor Moss Williams has said, because 4 weeks to analyse something as broad as this is absolutely ridiculous. I don't know how a small council would do it. Secondly, it takahis the mana on the mana of Tāmaki Makaurau as a council. The part where it takahis the mana on of the tikanga of tikanga Māori. And I think, you know, to me, it's kind of providing a lot of detail that's going to have very little outcome. And I think the other kaupapa that disturbs me about this is that we are given almost a set of questions that are it's almost predetermined how you're going to answer. And to me, it doesn't seem right. It doesn't allow for the free flow of thought or ideas. But, you know, government would be, if they want to sort out housing and all the rest, you know, let's get down to the real things like homelessness, mental health, things like that. I think there's better things that central government can work along than trying to do little amendments and then giving people only seconds to answer. So the Stat Board will be supporting these recommendations because it's of significance to Māori in Tāmaki Makaurau. But having said that, yeah, we need to send a message to government. You can't keep doing this. It's just ridiculous. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Member Wilcox. Deputy Mayor.
I'll keep it brief. Thank you, Chair. I think it's really sad that after 15 years of Auckland Council and the legislation that we have, you can get a bill like this that doesn't have an appendix or an extra for a council that is made up so differently. So I am absolutely supporting A because of that. And I think we make our point nicely. My second point is, I know that the Mayor is meeting Minister Pink tomorrow, and I hope that, Your Worship, that you tell him very clearly what the intent was behind our recommendations today, and just ask that they give it a bit more thought in the future. I'll be supporting the recommendations, but the one I really support is A. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Fully.
Kia ora, thanks. I don't want to prolong things either, so I just do want to echo what everyone else has said and say that this is a real overreach from central government. We've said it all term long that we don't want Wellington to be running Auckland, and this is an attempt absolutely to do that. And I just want to say as well, in terms of what is core council business, our people, that's what's core council business. Our communities, That's what's core council business. We heard from submitters earlier on today about that. And what makes up our people, what makes us human, things like our arts, our culture, music, our events, these are all things, you know, our dogs that we keep at home as pets, family members, these are all things that make us human, therefore they are core to what we do. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Councillor. Councillor Bartley.
Oh, thank you, Chair. I just want to support what's up there. I think this bill is not about Auckland anyway. It's about the political agenda. And when I read a bit more about it, the intention of government in removing the 4 well-beings is to reduce the pressure on rates. But then that's our job. Like, we have tools there that we can use to help, address financial issues in the council, which we've already used. And the Mayor has already said that the biggest impact on rates is the CRL. And the staff also said it's infrastructure. It's not the 4 well-beings or what we do as a council in that space. And then, like, in terms of what is important for Auckland, I believe they tell us what's important for them when we go out and do the annual plan consultations. And they did tell us what was important when we were going to look at cutting the community and regional services. And we had over 40,000 submissions in 2023 say that they didn't support those cuts. They wanted to, or majority didn't support those cuts. So that's them in a way telling us what is important. And we see it anyway, like when there's a major disaster, like the floods, like COVID, it was our communities that led the way, that were there, not central government, it was our communities. So we need to keep up working with our communities, investing in our communities. And also, we can, it would be a really boring Auckland if we didn't look at our social, our environmental, our cultural, our economic, because that is what makes a city great. And in terms of, like, there's the homelessness, there's alcohol harm, there's safety, those are things that residents, the public, demand us to address because it's happening in our city. And we can't just say, oh, that's a central government issue, because central government's not dealing with it. We are, in partnership with other organisations. In terms of the tikanga, that's really a worry to see it so blatantly expressed by this bill, because we have other things that we ask for when we do CCO appointments, for example, experience working with Pasifika and diverse communities. That hasn't been raised, it's just straight to tikanga, straight there. But we know the importance of having CCO appointments around tikanga because, for instance, water care, we need someone who's got good iwi relations. It's rangatira to rangatira. So that's really blatant how they've got that listed. And again, the same thing, the government, again, trying to tell councils what to do. And again, they should just focus on the country and just leave the city to us. That's what we were elected to do. Thank you.
Kia ora. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Ferry.
Kia ora. Sorry, you can probably hear the sizzling in the background as one of the kids cooks dinner. I just wanted to make a couple of quick points, which was that we did actually have a lengthy process quite recently from 2021 to 2023 that looked in depth at the future of local government. It was called the Future of Local Government Review. And it included looking at the well-beings and doing a lot of work on the on ideas around how to better structure local government. People might remember we had Penny Hulse was in the chair, and she came up and met with us all earlier in the term. They gave their final report in June 2023. And it's really disappointing that this government hasn't picked up that extensive piece of work done by a lot of people with a lot of goodwill brought to those conversations in creating this legislation. I'm also reflecting on the fact that I know that it was more than 4 weeks ago because I was there in person and I haven't been able to leave the house basically for 7 weeks. So I know that it was more than 4 weeks ago that we actually had our ministerial forum with senior ministers, only one in person, but others were online, where we could have discussed this with central government as well. And that opportunity was not taken up by them, knowing they must have known that they were bringing this forward. So I think it's really important that we do have A in there and that we try and reset this. I do support pretty much, or on balance, enough of what we've heard from the staff in terms of their recommendations to support B. And I feel comfortable delegating authority off the basis of this conversation around C. But I did just also want to talk about, it's not supposed to be a parent-child relationship. It is supposed to be that we acknowledge we have different fields that we're playing on. Not that, and that, yes, some of our power, a lot of our power does come from statute, but it shouldn't be this case where we have this parent coming in over the top all the time, just as it wouldn't be appropriate for us as governing body to be interfering with local boards, coming in over the top all the time, telling them, what to do with a local park that's in their responsibility. So, it's really disappointing for me that, all of that work was done. It's been put in a drawer. And instead we have something that really, I think, isn't just not fit for Auckland, but actually doesn't address some of the bigger challenges that the sector has been identifying for some time. And, I feel a little bit like when we were on Twitter and all we wanted was an edit button, right? You just want to be able to edit your tweets for like 5 minutes afterwards because you had a typo. And we never got the edit button. And what we wanted for this was we wanted a midnight levy tax. We wanted to be able to have some of those levers for Auckland to be able to set some of those things ourselves that the Mayor was talking about, like our own parking fees and stuff like that. And none of this is in here. So please, central government, give us our edit button, give us some power to you're worried about rates. Well, give us some power to raise funds some other ways. But yeah, so I'll be voting for this. Thanks, Chair.
Kia ora, Councillor, and I'll just speak briefly. And Councillor Henderson will now speak up to 5 minutes.
I thought I was on the list the whole time. Carl, everyone else got to go, Mr. Mayor. I was about to say you're 100% on the mark. Anyway, I'm glad to support the resolutions. I'll be brief. The problem with all of this, I'll focus on one problem because I've got so many of them. But look, defining what's a core service, right? Even within this room, we'll get different definitions from different people. I don't think it's actually possible to get an empirical list of core services. You know how you define a core service? You ask the public every 3 years when you put your name on the ballot paper and you say, here's what I'm going to do on the council. And if they don't like that, then they don't vote for you. The council doesn't do that eventually because enough of the people didn't want to do it. So it's democracy in action, right? And so for government to jump in and run roughshod over that through legislation, that's horrible. The other thing is that communities' needs and wants change, right? People that have been through multiple elections have had to change as well. You know that very well. When you lock things in legislation, you don't allow for that flexibility and responsiveness when Aucklanders' views change and they want their council to do different things or stop doing things. And so allowing us to do that through getting the mandate of the public every 3 years, that's the way to do it. So just the other thing I'd briefly add is it's time to get the balance back in favour of local democracy rather than away from it. Councillor Ferry makes a great point about the bed night levy. I'd agree and say, look, residents paying GST on rates to the government, that's a tax on a tax. These are the sort of things that we want to fix, and to do that you've got to have a conversation and you've got to get around the table and have a real meaningful chat rather than a whack and a kick in the media and in legislation. So just support you, Mr. Mayor and Chair and everyone involved. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor. And yeah, I've tried my best as Chair to work with the government, work with Chris Bishop, Chris Pink, a number of ministers in conversations through the Mayor, trying my best to work with the government for outcomes for the city. So I do agree that this is not out of left field. We've heard murmurings of it, but to be built, to build a bill like this that affects us so much is just thumbing their nose at us. And it is disappointing to see. And to even see some of the stuff in here around our reporting. Guess what a government doesn't have to do? They do not have to spend 6 months consulting on an annual plan and a budget. They can pass a budget overnight. Guess what else we have to do? We have to provide a balanced budget every year. We know how hard it is. We have to cut, pull, rate, do whatever we can to make it balanced. But a government can just have a surplus one year, have a deficit for 9 years, red or blue, they do it, they both do it, and they don't have to prove what we do to audit New Zealand, another government agency. They don't have to have asset management plans, we do under the law. They don't have to depreciate like we do. We do a lot of things. Infrastructure New Zealand have said that councils are exemplary on asset management and governments have not even got a basic Excel spreadsheet of the assets they own. So we are doing the things that they want us to do already. The things about the four well-beings, I mean, if we didn't have the discussions on homelessness in this place, Minister Portaka and Minister Bishop wouldn't be changing their approach, and they've both admitted that it was our figures, our teams, doing stuff that is not in the core business of council. I don't think the Mayor would have wanted to fund security on the streets out of his own mayoral budget, because that's nothing to do with local government, apparently. They don't even have animal management, and we know we had to increase our animal management budget by over 5 million, and we want legislation to help us, which we're not getting, but we'll get legislation like this. We have expectations on us. There's nothing about here about playgrounds, about most of the things that our community wants, nothing about public safety. All our bylaws that we legally have to spend a lot of money and time on are all here, but not in core services. When they talk about rates capping, they're talking about the Australian model. In the Australian model, the state governments put in tens of millions of dollars into services, into planning, into environment, into regulatory related stuff, huge investment into infrastructure that we just don't get from government, red or blue. Talking about footpaths, Councillor Turner, when we turned up to the GPS and the discussion with the funding that came back to us, one of the comments from Auckland Transport said, if we keep our budget like this, it will take us 300 years to renew all our footpaths. So what did we do? The Mayor we proposed $500 million of our own rates funded money to 100% fund a whole lot of projects. I don't remember a time that's happened before, but we are 100% funding, not 50-50 like we normally get, a bunch of projects to help bring things like footpaths and cycleways back. As Councillor Bartley said, we put out a pretty harsh budget, and the Mayor will remember it, in 2023 to try and fix a hole. And I think we had the highest number of submissions ever, and 70%, 7-0. And, you know, normally people submit on things when they're grumpy, and they were grumpy that we were cutting back on the things that this bill would say. So we've already asked the community, and they came back to us. 70% of them came back and said, do not cut the CABs, do not cut the environment funding, do not pull back on the targeted rates, do not the grant funding. I mean, the tennis ASB Classic, the tennis centre down there, those are all the types of things we couldn't do. We are choosing to do that because our community is asking us to do that. And it is annoying to hear that what we get told how bad we are. Even in the bill itself, 15% is the average increase. None of that is events or Anzac Days or library books. That is all infrastructure. We have, since I've been here, and since many of us have been here, 2016, we've quadrupled our transport budget. We've, I think, 5 times the budget we're doing on capital for water now, and the inflation costs around steel and concrete are the massive increases. Watercare have said it's not the staff costs, it's the steel and concrete costs that have gone up since 2020 that have been the killers, and our community expect that. So it is disappointing. I'm glad. I didn't want to put up chairs Rex and create what has happened in the past. So I'm glad we've come to a compromise here. But I think, you know, governments do need to let us do what we think our communities want. And as Councillor Henderson says, they will vote us out if we do the wrong thing anyway. So I think there's been a good conversation. We just hope that the government can come back to us and look at a different model. So kia ora. All those in favour? Is there any opposed? And I'm happy to take opposed on numbers.
Yes, I want to record my...
Cool, thank you. Councillor Turner and Councillor Fletcher would like to abstain. And Councillor Williamson, is it all 3 clauses?
No, I'm happy to support A, and I want to vote against B and C.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Williamson. Thank you. Right. We're done. We'll move on to